Neurodiversity. Today, in particular, I want to talk about autism. And do you know somebody who is an autist or is autistic? Because it's much more common than you even think. In the UK, it's seen to be 1 in 100 people have autism. That's 700,000 people. So, thinking about that, the chances are that you actually know somebody who is autistic, you love somebody who is autistic, or you actually work with somebody who has autism. So, what is autism? And why am I talking about it on Wellbeing Weekend? Because the effects are all pervasive. But let's just simplify it down. You can go and Google what is autism and you can get all the medical definitions of that. But what does it mean to real people, to a parent, to somebody who has autism, to a colleague or a friend? One of I suppose, the definitions is that it's a lifelong developmental disability that affects how we communicate and relate to others. And it affects how we make sense of the world around us. Lots of things that we take for granted, such as reading body language, metaphors, acronyms. These things I absolutely hate with a passion because it can be so confusing. And it's, it's disorientating for us. When somebody is speaking, and of course we all do it within the business sector, whatever sector that you're in, you have your own language and you have metaphors that you will use. But for somebody on the outside, it's like, what does that mean? I've actually missed half of the conversation. I don't understand what's going on, and it can become lodged in your head. EC, what is an EC? I've got no idea what an EC is. And before we know it, we've just passed the whole of the meeting or the conversation because we've become fixated. So, like I say, autism is a spectrum condition. So, whilst our autism will affect us in different ways, and we'll have different difficulties, but it is across the spectrum. And I see it more as a circle rather than a linear, because there are some things that are interactive and some things that aren't. We are all individuals, whether as adults or children. So some of us have been to university, we hold down jobs, we're self-employed. I usually say that I'm unemployable, but I can't say that anymore because I actually do have a job. Though I think my colleagues may may beg to differ. And then you're going to have some autistic young people or adults that will need lifelong specialist support if they have additional co-occurring learning difficulties. Some autists have average or above average in intelligence, but they may have fewer problems with speech, actually vocalizing, but they may still have problems processing language. So, what is autism like? For us, the world can be a confusing mass of people, events, and places. Sometimes we struggle to make sense of the world, and this can make us really, really anxious. Like I said before, every person with autism is different, which is why it can be so, so difficult to understand. We learn to mask, I think, from a very, very young age, especially if you're undiagnosed, and that can be exhausting. Learning intellectually, not instinctually, what other people do. So that is what the masking is. We have to learn physically, intellectually, learn and observe how other people act and react. Some people don't have a diagnosis. They just know they're different. They don't fit in, or they struggle. And some people may have had many, many different diagnoses when in actual fact they're autistic. So every person with autism is different, which is again why it can be so difficult to understand. Some of the characteristics that we have include a love of routine. Now that can be a funny one, because if you're demand avoidant, it can be that the routines other people instill on you, like if you're in work, can be really, really difficult to adhere to. But we still love routines. I personally can cope very well if I create my own routine, if I decide where I'm going to be or who I'm going to see. I'm incredibly self-motivated. Put in a situation where somebody decides for me, or external circumstances that happen that I have no control over, actually really, really send my anxiety levels through the roof. Sensory issues. So again, looking at the people that you know with autism, and I think this is one of the key indicators. So either hypo or hyper sensitivity to things such as noises. I can't bear whistling to such an extent that I actually, yeah, let's not just not go there. I really can't bear it. It is that frequency that I find really, really difficult. Smells. Some people might be really hypersensitive to smell or hyposensitive to smell. Touch. So, we'll all know, one of those things that we ask people, do you mind if I hug you? Do you mind if I shake your hand? Just being respectful in that way. I personally love touch. I love hugs. But there are some people that really, really don't. And that would be very, very, very uncomfortable for them. There are hypersensitivities in taste, light in particular. So all of these sensitivities, I believe personally as a counsellor, are the one thing that we examine, because we don't know ourselves when we're inside ourselves. We have to become aware of what it is in the environment that is affecting us, that is increasing our anxiety, that makes us more susceptible to breakdowns. And by looking at that and learning about neurodiversity, whether you're an employer, excuse me, whether you're an employer or a colleague or a friend, we can make adaptations in the workplace. And this has huge benefits, because by hiring and being inclusive, you may get a candidate that comes along that sees things in a different way, sees solutions to problems in a simplified way, who is very, very attention to detail. There are so many skills, as well as the difficulties that we actually struggle with. We can have difficulties reading facial expressions or understanding jokes or common phrases like, oh, you're going to cut your nose off to spite your face? What? Many people with autism don't look disabled. They look just like you or I, and that is why it's called a hidden disability. Many parents I talk to, they get so upset because other people think that their child is being naughty, and they're often misunderstood. And again, this is why it's called a hidden disability. Try not to judge. Is there a cure for autism? No. It is a neurological difference. There are interventions. There are interventions that you can use with children and also with adults. to enable their learning and their development. Toolkits that reduce anxiety and they help us navigate the world from inside, individual to us. Very soon my website is going to be live. That is going to be www.thecoachingden.co.uk, where I'm going to be posting loads of different resources that can be for parents or young people or adults who are not diagnosed or post-diagnosis. And on the point of diagnosis, we all know there is a huge waiting list. But if you do suspect that your child is having difficulties or maybe autistic, in the first instance, take them to your local GP. They can then get a referral through to a diagnostic centre that we can help you decipher what difficulties your child has. Now, as an adult, we have the integrated autism services. But some may choose not to have a diagnosis, and that is absolutely okay. What the important thing is, it's not the diagnosis, it's not the label, it's actually understanding how you operate, how you perceive the world. And that is the same for